As Don said, my name is Sahar, and as you've had a chance to see quite a lot of the occupation, I fortunately don't have to talk about that at all, and I'll try to give you a little bit of the other side of that picture in the sense of the militarism in Israeli society and how it affects the occupation, how it kind of comes out of it. So I was born here, born and raised in Jerusalem. You've probably noticed that Jerusalem is not one city, although Israel likes to say it is. I would argue that there are probably at least 3 cities here. There's the Palestinian East Jerusalem, there's the Jewish Orthodox part of the city, and then there's the Jewish non-Orthodox part of the city. And they have different public transportation systems, different school systems, different languages in many cases. So everything that I can say about growing up in Jerusalem, I'm actually only talking about a very small part of Jerusalem, which is the part of Jerusalem that's really under complete Israeli control, including the education system. The Orthodox, for that matter, don't study in the same education system that we do. So everything I will say about education is only true for the Zionist governmental education system. So I think that when you kind of try to look at Israeli education, there are 2 lines that are really important when we talk about militarism. The first one is, what does militarism actually look like on a daily basis? And then the second one is the whole concept of fear and how that fits into militarism. And when we talk about militarization, it starts literally from the day you kind of step out of your house. So you've walked around Jerusalem a bit. Have you walked around West Jerusalem at all?
No.
Not at all.
Just drove through a corner of it.
Okay, so if you ever do get a chance, you walk 10 meters from here, and one of the first things that you'd notice is the amount of guns on the streets. Now, this is obviously also true in the occupied territories, but those are soldiers on uniform, on duty. When you walk here, it could either be soldiers on duty or it can be soldiers on vacation. It just seems very normal. We don't see those kind of things. And for people coming from the outside, that's usually kind of scary. And you're not used to seeing that many guns. One of the things that's important to understand about Israelis is that we don't see them. They're completely transparent as far as we're concerned, because we're so used to seeing them everywhere. I was living in this city up north near the border with Lebanon, and there were 3 tanks in the entrance to the city. And they're pink, yellow, and green, and kids would play on them, and it's just really in every part of your life, you're used to seeing weapons as something completely unthreatening. There's this sheet of paper that I love to show that was given to kindergarten kids to teach them how to count. So on the one side you have the numbers from 1 to 10, and on the other side you have symbols. So you're supposed to connect 2 symbols to the number 2. Only in that piece of paper, the symbols that were chosen were tanks and airplanes and the symbol of the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force. And the same piece of paper had an olive branch, a dove, Knesset, our parliament, the symbol of Israel, the flag of Israel, and the kind of message that comes out of something like that obviously a 3-year-old doesn't really understand the message that comes out of it, right? He's just trying to connect the dots. But what that represents for Israelis is Israel. That's what Israel is. It's institutions, it's peace, we all want peace obviously, and it's the military, and that's part of creating an identity in many ways. And that's just one of many examples of how that's done. And by the time you get to even elementary school, at the entrance to my school, there was a plaque with the names of all the soldiers who went to my school and later on died in combat. And we would, play this game of kind of trying to figure out who do we recognize. If it's, older brothers or uncles, or Netanyahu's brother went to our school, so we could all recognize his name. And it was almost a game that 7, 8-year-old kids would play. And by the time you're in the 12th grade, that's usually the grade that does not the 12th grade, 6th grade. So when you're 12, that's the grade that usually does the ceremonies in schools. So you would go up in front of your whole school as a 12-year-old and read out the names of all the soldiers from your school who died. So you, in many ways, very much personalize this idea of not only joining the army, but also possibly dying as part of that service from a very, very young age. By the time we get to high school, it becomes even more established. So you have soldiers coming in and out of classrooms explaining about the different units. It's considered preparation for military service. You have a soldier that's responsible for every year group. So we had our very nice guy who would just come in and make sure that everyone knows where they're going in the army, and if they have any questions, he can explain about them. And you go out to military camps for them to try to convince you to go to this unit or the other. It's literally like, it's a little bit like a college fair, just with different units. And they try to convince you, we want you. And then in the 11th grade, there's a week of basic training. So you go out with school, it's part of school activity, to a military base, and you learn how to shoot, and you wear a uniform, and you take orders. And it's part of school activity, and it's fun, it's with your friends. And this whole thing leads up to the fact that when you're supposed to be conscripted at the age of 18, and nobody's ever, I mean, it's the law, right? Nobody's ever going to ask you, do you want to serve in the army? When you're expected to be conscripted, you've never asked yourself that question. You've never questioned the idea of military service because you had no reason to. Just to be clear that this is not just a perspective about what the education system does. Officially, that's part of the goals of the education system, is to prepare for military service. It's in the written goals since 1951 when they were written to today. That's probably the one goal that hasn't changed throughout time. There's this really nice photo of the head of the South District of the Ministry of Education and the head of the South District of the Israeli military having this farewell party when this general was retiring. And the main thing about it, the way that the Ministry of Education published that photo on their Facebook page, was the Ministry of Education is thanking this general for years of cooperation. So the idea that there's years of cooperation is clear, and it's something that we're very happy to be proud about. And the same photo, the general was giving this lady from the Ministry of Education a goodbye gift. And that kind of leads me to that other narrative, because what he gave her was a framed picture with 3 photos in it. The first photo, it's this carving of the Jewish people taking out the relics from the Second Temple when the Romans are destroying it. So it's like this, religious, historical persecution of Jews. The second picture is the picture of the little kid from the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, the one surrendering. And then the third picture is the paratroopers on the Wailing Wall in '67 when they liberated it. And that, in many ways, is kind of a snapshot of the historical narrative that we're taught, which is that everyone has always tried to kill Jews. It's a religious fact, it's a historical fact, and then the Holocaust is obviously the strongest example of that. And then what we have now. What we have now is the response to that. It's the strong enough army to reoccupy Jerusalem, to liberate the Wailing Wall, and that's kind of the narrative that we come out with. Every year there's the March of the Living. There's this march through the different camps in Poland that ends in Auschwitz-Birkenau, and it's led by the heads of the Israeli Defense Institute, so either police or military. And the previous chief of staff, when he went, he came back, the headline in all the newspapers when he was there was, "Never again, now we have the IDF." That's the conclusion, right? The reason it can't happen again is because we have a strong enough army. And that narrative is everywhere. It's the best example is in our holidays. There's a month between April and May in the Hebrew calendar that starts with Passover. And I assume friends of Sabeel all know what Passover is about. And then, I mean, Passover is not only about the Exodus and the liberation from persecution, but it's also where the Israelites are created as a nation. That is the nation-building exercise, and it is liberation from persecution. And the command of the holidays to remember. There's always a question of what is it that we should remember about it, and different people will take it to different places. But the song that we all sing together in the Pesach, in the Seder dinner, translates into, in every generation someone tries to exterminate us, right? That's what we will remember. And then a week after Passover ends is the Holocaust Memorial Day, Exactly a week after that is the Soldiers' Memorial Day, and the following morning is Independence Day. And it's the exact same snapshot like that photo. You know, everyone has always tried to kill us, historically, religiously. The Holocaust is the example for that. And then people had to fight and die for you to be here today, and that is why you're here. So if you take that together with the fact that no one has ever asked you about military service, and then, like myself, you grow up in Jerusalem in the Second Intifada, and you've been told that everyone has always tried to kill us, and you walk out on the street and people are trying to kill us. And that was our reality, right? Buses were blowing up. We all knew people who died. That was our experience. And it just fit into what we were taught. And in many ways, it allowed us to not ask why. Why would someone come into our city and blow themselves up? We didn't have to ask why because we knew why. It's what people do. There was this plaque in a or I think it was a first grade, about a year and a half ago in that season of April and May, that someone took a picture of, and in the middle it said, "Who tried to kill us?" And then it had different lines to different people who tried to kill us. And it was everything from the Roman, the Greek, Pharaoh, to Ahmadinejad, the Arabs, Hitler. And it's just, I mean, that's the perspective. You never have to ask, why would the Arabs try to kill us? It's exactly like asking why Hitler would try to kill us or why the Romans try to kill us. It's the same, you know, historical fact. That's what people do. And I think that, at least for most of my friends, it's just a fact of living. And then out of that, the idea that you'll join the army when you're 18 makes perfect sense. It's the only thing you can possibly do, both because it's automatic and because that's how you protect your family.